Hey guys, let's talk about Leeway.
Alright boys, quick, concise, no BS. We're going to be going over the leeway mechanic in this video. I will tell you exactly what the leeway mechanic is if you're wondering what the hell it is. I will tell you, do not worry about that. We're going to give a demonstration on it as well with my main man Leeway here, aptly named. And then I will tell you and give you my thoughts on whether or not I think it should be changed, how it's going to change the meta, etc, 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 etc. Alright, so Leeway, what is Leeway? Well, if two players are in PvP combat and both players are moving, what will happen is the game will give you extra range on your melee attacks and your melee abilities. I will demonstrate that right now. I'll go into base melee range, which is going to be about here. Let's move back a little bit just to make sure. Yeah, I was in perfect melee range. There we go. So I'm slicing away at my main man Leeway here. This is the base melee range on an orc. It will be increased on tour and I will show that later. Now, if I move backwards, I cannot attack my friend here. It's impossible to attack my friend, right? I'm outside of melee range, yes? That's how... I'm not going to say that's how it should be, but this isn't melee range. However, if I start moving, I start strafing here, the game thinks I'm moving and it activates the Leeway mechanic. Of course, I am moving. So as you can see, I am now slicing from across the equator. I can, of course, use my Raptor Strike as well. That is absolutely fine. There you go. So here is my max range now with the Leeway. It's going to be about at this plant here. This end plant here. This is your new range. I don't know what I'd say that is. Probably about 8 yards, maybe just over 8 yards. Alright, so we're on the Tauren right now, swapped over, and we're going to show them base melee range on the Tauren. It's going to be around about here, which is between these two plants, so just underneath where I was on the Orc. Of course, this has been confirmed by Blizzard as, you know, ironically, quote-unquote, Blizz-like.
It is Blizz-like. Honestly, that's so irritating to me. He's basically, there's a double meaning, a secret agenda behind this. It's like, oh, when I duel Taurens, now their intercept range is, you know, there's no dead zone anymore. That's what's really happening here. God, that is so annoying. So you want to get all melees nerfed because you don't like that can't dead zone Taurens, which is a race you don't even fight against.
To have Taurens with a bigger hitbox, that's completely fine. Bigger melee range, you've got an extra couple yards there, whatever, right? But now the crazy thing here is if I start to move backwards a little bit, my Leeway should activate from around about here. As you can see, I'm hitting from literally the other side of the world. I can even Raptor Strike.
These EU private server kids. Oh my gosh. Like, they have no idea what it was like to play on 125 ping all this time. It's just like the arrogance.
And there you go, boom. This is your new melee range as a Tauren if both players are moving. So if you're chasing off someone on a Tauren warrior or Tauren whatever the hell it is, as long as it's melee and some other guy's trying to escape, some poor priest over is trying to run away from you, you are not getting away, mate. You are going to be visiting that graveyard pretty soon.
Oh no, casters are getting nerfed in vanilla World of Warcraft.
If I'm slicing you from over here, like this is insane, okay? Now, my War Stomp range is 8 yards. 8 yards. If you guys have played World of Warcraft for a long period of time, you know that this is probably not 8 yards. We're going to show you right now that it is definitely not.
Oh, wow. So Tauren, Howl of Terror, pretty much anyone that isn't a paladin is going to get a massive nerf? No, I'm just kidding. But think about this. You can now, as a paladin, outrange like a Thunderclap, a Howl of Terror, a Thunderstomp, so many things. You'll be able to outrange with your improved melee range. So I guess what is annoying me is that, like, these dorks almost screaming like no changes forever, but then they realize the changes, like a lot of the, okay, when I played like Seal of Righteousness builds, right? And people started telling me, like, okay, that's not going to be on the private servers. I was like, okay. So I started practicing different command builds. I was getting ready for Classic. When I was sitting on Hen House, dueling people, sometimes I'd lose. And then they'd be like, oh, or maybe I'd be on alt. And they'd be like, you need to talk to Drakova on how to build your character correctly. And I'm like, I am Drakova. I'm just practicing for the real game, not this bullshit private server nonsense that you guys have cooked up. Now, if you think the private server attack range is better and more skill based, maybe I won't argue with you with that. But it's funny because, like, when do you get to decide what should and shouldn't be? Because what it looks like to me, what I suspect is there's a double meaning behind this. This is actually more about Taurens being able to ignore rogue dead zoning in real vanilla. than actually caring anything about the authenticity or gameplay. Or he tries to make it like skill-based mechanics, but it's like, is it that or is it? I mean, if it's that, that's fine. That's a noble purpose, and I can support that. But if you're really just there's certain things you want because you practice them a certain way and that's how you want them to be, then I don't know, just fuck off.
8 yards. So you're literally hitting with your ACOG scope Tauren weapon from, I don't know what that is, 10 yards, 11 yards? But to be honest, I think we also have to look into the past as well. Like, Blizzard have historically made concessions to accommodate for new technology in other areas, you know, like the ability to house more than 2,500 people on one server. That's not going to be a server cap anymore. That was a technological limitation back in the day. So this is pretty much an outdated mechanic in my opinion. You know, we're not all lining up with our Microsoft ball mice waiting to connect via dial-up. This is essentially emulating server lag, which we don't need to do anymore. But I should clarify though, right?
Let me give you another example of something huge I noticed. If I'm fighting a warrior and they charge on me, right? I get a DR return, right? Or actually, this nerfs warriors like in multiple ways. So actually, this is really just the biggest buff to paladins, ironically, when I think about it, because of all the classes, it's going to help warriors a lot. But in paladin versus warrior matchup, it's going to nerf the warrior. Because now, when the warrior does his intercept charge, the duration isn't going to be long enough that you won't be able to hit him once. And so that stun is next to useless. Like, he's going to intercept you, and then he starts backing out. That's what, like, Monkey News does. That's what all these good warriors do. They do their intercept, they hit you with what they can, and they run out. They dash out. Now the attack range is so long with that DR on the intercept, you can still just hit them. And one hit from a paladin is a big deal. I mean, how our mechanics work, it's like we just front load every 3.8 seconds, right? So getting that one swing is a big difference, especially when you're playing deep red. And then, like, okay, so now mace spec, right? Like, the best weapon in the game is Might of Minithil. A warrior with Might of Minithil. Well, shit, like, a big part of playing mace spec correctly is getting that little micro stun and then kind of walking in and out of combat. But now if you have to walk closer to the paladin to land your, like, AoE whatever debuff or something, so you have to get closer. When you get that micro stun, your chances of getting out of range in time before the paladin gets out of that CD and hits you is higher. So I mean, I'm okay. Like, I'll survive if they change to private server mechanics, but honestly, like, what are you gonna do for red paladins? Why the fuck should we just, like, let people? They get to tell us that we're bad for years, then we prove on private server coding that we're literally like the highest PvE damage. The Spelladin video is real as far as Northdale goes, so whatever. And then, like, okay, so we're gonna go to live servers, we're gonna play with different rules, right? And then, like, okay, well, look at this. With Leeway, paladin mechanics are really strong. I mean, maybe you could say lack thereof, but it's like really strong that we can strike from far away and avoid AoEs. We don't really particularly have a lot of AoE stuff ourselves. It's a really big deal. When I went to private servers in 2016, I was totally confused that I could never walk out of range of Howl of Terror. Because I remember doing it all the time. Fighting out of range of Howl of Terror, fighting out of the range of Priest Spheres too. Like, I did it all the time, especially Howl of Terror because it has a casting time, right? So a big part of Paladin is hit them at max range and then run out of range and walk back into range, and using freedom to kind of go in and out of that max range. And you're fighting someone that has something like an AoE, like a mage. Like, this is going to buff mages AoE farming. Now everyone has to stand more on top of each other if they want to hit the mage. Like, so anyways, I was confused, but you know what? When I didn't know why I couldn't dodge Howl of Terror anymore, I just sucked it up. I was just like, oh, okay, well, maybe I just don't remember vanilla right. All right, fine. Well, guess what? You guys were wrong all along. We can totally avoid like 50% of Howl of Terrors now because our attack range is like 11 yards or something stupid. I mean, it's like 9 or 8 yards. But you can hit 9 or 8 yards and then run quite a ways back in 3.8 seconds without losing any damage and run back in. So, I mean, I mean, I get back to my point. It's like these cry. I mean, this is kind of like when do we get to stop? You can't make any changes because you literally. I'm gonna demand you change things that I want. We can all just demand, just make ridiculous demands. I think Steel of Righteousness should double proc oils. What about that? It's like no matter what the coding is, I always find a way to break the system. And then when I find a way to break the system, somebody wants to cry about how it's unfair. But I just spent like 4 or 3 months getting yelled at telling my class sucks all this time. And then they find out like, oh wait, actually it's really strong. Actually, looks like Deep Red is pretty fucking strong in vanilla, at least at solo queue. Because I'm going into every one of these BGs with these so-called like pro elitist players, and it's like, as a casual, I'm performing pretty dang well. I mean, if you watch any of my Twitch streams, I mean, I'm doing fine. And sometimes even, making a big play to win the match or whatever. And I'm just like kind of haphazardly doing this. So anyways, I guess it's like, it feels like no matter what happens, people are going to just kind of pick what they want. And I'm tired of this. Like, are we going to decide on rules? I thought we decided no changes. If we decided no changes, let Melee exploit this new range. I don't give a shit about mages crying. Oh no, mages get nerfed. Hunters have a problem with this too. Oh no. Just learn to play around it. Or shut up. I sound angry, don't I? Alright, let's keep listening.
Well, no changes is a fantastic notion. Failing to adapt the game to modern
I mean, some people still have bad internet too. And I kind of agree. Like, I'm willing to accept that Leeway should be changed. And it should do, but I want an apology. Honestly, I want. There should be like Blizzard Blue Post apology to paladins. Like, it's like, oh, we. I don't know. Not really. I'm not being realistic here, but it's just like, oh, so these mechanics are in our favor, and all along we've been playing handicapped because people wanted to imagine fantastical things that never actually existed. Jesus. And it's like, we had our fantastical bullshit and I exploited the hell out of it. But at least I was like, well, this is probably not going to be in Classic, so I'm not going to use this anymore. So I started playing with handicaps. It's just to try to get ready for this. And now that looks like, well, hey, it looks like Deep Red's going to be sitting in a nice place. And then it's like, oh, well, we're going to change it again because we wanted no changes, but then it affected rogues, so we couldn't handle that.
technologies will actually deliver a vastly different vanilla experience than what I think you guys are expecting or hoping for. Like mechanics such as Leeway that were put in place to provide a smoother gameplay experience with the less stable internet connections of the time will nowadays just serve as a mechanic that waters down the skill cap. I mean, back in the day you had people on, I think it's ASDL.
Waters the skill cap for who? Red Paladins? Because now we can actually dodge a lot of AoEs. Like a lot of them. Maybe for rogues.
ADSL connections which were like 0.5 megabyte download. It was insane. But I mean, I'm in Ratchet stuck to the ground right now. We're not on Mass Effect sitting on the moon with a sniper rifle. So from a balance perspective, this completely nerfs.
Wait, World of Warcraft isn't accurate to real life? Wow. I mean, I don't know. I just like, okay, if it really is to make the game a better game, if that's that's your agenda, to make more people play and have more fun, then that's noble, and I'm fine with that. But I honestly feel, I know some of these private server people, and I know how they are, and when their mechanics don't work or the things they practice, it's kind of like they're butthurt about it, right? I mean, I was kind of butthurt when I realized several months before it came out that probably I need to start looking at command options, and I did that. That's why I went down in-house and started practicing a lot of that. It was fine. I got really good, and actually found that Deep Red is probably better against rogues than Reckoning is. So anyways, let's keep going.
Anything that isn't melee and just waters down any sort of like frame perfect positioning based gameplay. And I do think I do think it should be tuned because this is just way too strong in my opinion. And it's, I mean, look at this. This is completely outside the 8-yard range. This is insane.
It's out of what you. I mean, that's how it was though. Like, what are you arguing? It's insane about like. You're like, oh, the thunder. You can fight from outside a thunderstorm. Like, I remember doing that. I really feel like anyone that started playing private servers, like at the end of private servers, versus people who, like someone who grinded to rank 13 without a pre-made in vanilla, actually remembers some of these mechanics. I remember being out of thunderstomp range. I remember getting out of Hell of Terror all the time as a paladin. And then I went to private servers and none of that worked anymore. And I was like, oh, well, maybe they're just better than they used to be. Like, and another one was the intercept stun. It's like if you get intercept stunned on private servers, you can't get the strike in on the warriors. That's a huge, that can easily be a 2,500 HP difference, just one auto. Just because how command is so bursty, losing any auto is a really big deal. So, this, I mean, like, no, like, I am okay with the changes, but if you change that, then maybe you're going to change something else. And then I'm just going to ask that you change, like, you just give something to paladins straight up. Because if you're going to be doing that, that's like, that was a huge part of Deep Ret. Huge part of Control Ret. And that's why Control Ret never worked on private servers. I used to play 0.18.33 on live, and it worked fabulous. And then I went to private servers, and I was like, oh, this isn't really working. So then I started investigating Reckoning. Like, I wasn't even a Reckoning paladin in that. Now I'm back on live, and I'm like, oh shit, like, all this stuff we thought these players were stupid for doing make a lot more sense now. Like, Durno's spell power build with command makes a lot more sense. Some of it's just because they didn't know what they were doing, but some of the stuff like Zalgradis' stuff makes a little more sense. A lot of this old school vanilla stuff actually kind of makes sense now, where it just doesn't make any sense at all on private servers. So Deep Red is going to take a huge hit if they change Leeway. And I also find it funny, like, I don't know, it's just, the whole thing is ridiculous to me. Like, you just can't decide to change that without changing everything.
But, you know, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think it should be changed. Let me know if you think it's completely fine. Let me know if you think we should adapt, you know, whatever.
It's fine, because let's face it, we all know casters are pretty strong in vanilla World of Warcraft. And more than anyone, it hurts them. And as far as the mechanic and gameplay, that's a very small percentage of people that want to get into the high-end movement, honestly. I mean, I personally think that's good. I think a lot of the private server guys have been playing for 10 years are going to want the high-end movement, but you know, a lot of the retail kids not going to want it anyways. I don't know. Maybe they will. Maybe I'm wrong about that, actually, because they like a smoother experience too, right? Because they're not playing on this old crappy coding, right? So maybe I'm wrong, actually. I'm going to eat my own words on that. But I guess it's just like they changed Leeway. It's going to nerf Deep Ret significantly because we have more control. We get more out of Leeway than any other class because we have a freedom combined with a 3.8 delay weapon speed. So we're not doing anything in between the downtime. So our ability to walk out of AoEs and walk back into AoEs is massive. And we don't have really AoEs ourselves. So the one thing that's funny, actually, a lot of you guys know I don't really like Consecration very much. This is going to make Consecration worse. And I remember Consecration not being very good because I came from vanilla. I didn't play the game. I didn't play like Wrath and all this stuff. I just played vanilla and quit when Burning Crusade came out pretty much. So, yeah, rogues will be able to jump basically and stun you over your Consecration. Like, easier. So, then that's how I kind of remembered it. And that's why I was always like, kind of hesitant to like, well, a good rogue can get around it. And then I was surprised on private servers, like good rogues really couldn't get around it Because I remember it on live, they kind of could. And with Leeway, it makes sense that they can. So, anyways, um, I think, okay, I know I've been kind of harsh and irritated because I just feel like so much of this is private server nerds. Like, basically, they played the game for 12 years and then they're having to adjust and they don't like it. And a lot of their old information is now wrong. And they wanted to. It's the same thing with the elite mobs. Like, they're just fucking clueless and they wanted to. It's like, I don't know how many times I was playing Command on this server and people are like, do Reckoning, do Seal of Righteousness, do Spell Power builds. And I'm like, those have a place and they're not totally useless now. But guys, you're just gonna have to accept like everything is different. The game is so different. Private servers are completely dog shit. Just get over it. They couldn't even get the elite mob damage right. So the mechanics have changed, and guess what? It looks like it's actually in our favor, so let's not fuck it up and let them change everything. Alright, let's listen to this crap.
Whatever it is, of course, all we can is just shoot opinions and see what happens. So yeah, just for reference, we've jumped on the nice testicle race, which is a universal hitbox, of course, shared with all the other races that aren't Tauren, which I explained earlier. I think I explained it earlier anyway, but here we go. This is max melee range on the gnome. If I move back a little bit now to about here, which is where the orc leeway started activating, I can start slicing away from here. A bit closer, actually. So yeah. Let me know what you guys think.
Oh, and another thing. These private server players are like, oh, but I wanted to be the orc master race. Now I actually have to choose between Tauren? Ooh. It's like, yeah, that's cool. I don't know, like, the different, that they're different is cool. Because guess what? Taurens are really big. And everyone and their mom can click on a Tauren warrior. You know, not everyone, believe it or not, in 2019 is using tab like they should. So there's little hidden downsides, you know. And, you know, now it's this, you might consider playing a Tauren warrior. Even though orc was just vastly the best thing the whole time on private servers. And now I think you have a bigger hitbox so people can hit you from farther away too, right? So, I mean, it's not that big of a thing. For a warrior, it's a buff, usually, because usually like hunting down casters, but yeah, it should be that way. The Tauren warriors should have an advantage. Look at them, they're massive. That's like roleplay. All these min-maxers crying because their gnome doesn't have an advantage over a Tauren. I mean, just shut up. I mean, you have escape artists, that's good enough. Just, honestly. I feel like if you're doing it from a point of view that you care about the game, fine. But I'm worried that a lot of these private servers are really, they're just going to push it because they have an agenda. And it has nothing to do with the quality of the game. So it depends. But I'm not a mind reader, so I'm basically just blanketly attacking anyone that just wants the game to be like the private servers because that's what they want. And I blanketly support anyone that just ultimately thinks it's good for the game. And I really hate anyone that's going to pretend like they care about the good of the game but really just want it to be how it was on private servers. That's the worst. I mean, one of those is good, one of those is bad, and one of those is just cancer. Alright guys, Deus Vault.